if you would like to choose the limiting belief that you don't have what it takes, I patently disagree with you.
Jasmine Star is a world-class speaker, thought leader, podcast host, CEO, and entrepreneur dedicated to helping you reach your fullest potential. After getting her start in the entrepreneurial world as an internationally recognized wedding photographer, she became a speaker and business strategist for creative entrepreneurs and spent almost a decade helping business owners across the world take risks and live their fullest lives. She then went on to found a tech company called Social Curator, which was a monthly subscription that serves as a digital marketing agency in your pocket. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome this powerhouse, Jasmine Star, to the show. Jasmine Star, I've been looking forward to this interview. I feel like I found you on the gram and then I started stalking you. And I'm always so excited and interested in consultants who really support women to have financial freedom and independence and who cheer other female entrepreneurs on. And then you have that Latina fire. And I'm like, how do I get to know this woman? How do I sit across the table from her? And here we are.
Here we are.
I'm so happy to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I have to say, speaking of the Latina flair, I learned about you at the Montage in Los Cabos. So my husband and I met and we're looking at the menu and you had a couple things on the menu, but I didn't know I was like, wait a minute, who is getting a shout out on the Montage Los Cabos menu? So I bring up my phone and then I stalked you and I'm like, who is she? And so now to be sitting across the table from you, albeit not at Montage Los Cabos, one day. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go. But I'm so happy. Thank you for this. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's full circle because we're at the Pendry, which is a montage property.
Yes.
And I have those relationships from a long time ago when they supported me on my second book tour. So I'm happy that things all come full circle.
Yeah.
But today is about you because I feel like I'm learning from the best. I'm gonna take notes from today's podcast. But you started as a photographer and then you moved on into being a coaching women and entrepreneurs in Instagram into being like really a business coach and consultant. Like, how does that happen? Where did you start and how are you sitting here?
Well, I woke up this morning and I literally thought, okay, how am I sitting across the table from Kelly? Like, it's very much an honor. And that's just, I'm not nice. I'm just honest. And so sometimes if people can look at honesty and call it niceness, then I'm in a great place. But I'm also very much a straight shooter.
Yeah.
And so I think that for all intents and purposes, I had no business starting a business. I wasn't somebody who was particularly smart, particularly savvy. I didn't come from like a pedigree of family owners. I'm a first generation Latina. I come from a long line of like gardeners and cooks and housekeepers. And so in my mind, starting a business was a thing that other people did, not me. And so I looked at education as the way to traverse socioeconomic divides. And so went to college, then got a full ride to UCLA Law School. And I was there and I just realized I'm miserable. So for all intents and purposes, there is the constructive path, the path that we think we should go down. And then you get to a point in your life where you're like, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And to be honest, I probably would have continued going, except my mom had a relapse of brain cancer. And she had been battling for a while. And it was at that time, after about 9 years of her battle, that the doctors had said, we've done enough. Like, we've done everything we could. So it was 2 brain surgeries, an eye surgery, chemo, radiation, I mean, the whole 9. And we had to make the decision of the quality that was remaining in her life. And it was at that time that I was in law school. We got that news. And I kind of just cracked, to be honest. I'm like, I think that I'm not doing great. Emotionally, I'm not doing great. And then I went even deeper dive. And I was like, what am I doing? My mom was 50 and I was 25. And I thought to myself, what if I die in the next 25 years? Like, I don't want to die a lawyer. That's not the last thing I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And it forced me to make a decision. It forced me to say, what am I going to do that will give me a chance at happiness? And if along the way you could make money and be happy, because financially it's a big driver for me. It's like I come from a family, we just didn't have money. We didn't have much. So I did the thing that I thought would get me money. And then I realized that it came at the cost of happiness. And so I just started asking myself, is there a way for me to find happiness and financial stability? And I will say, before I pause, my mom is still here with us. It is a complete miracle.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And if only her life was to be like the North Star for her 5 children to figure out like, what are you really doing? Then my God, what a sacrifice, and like forever indebted.
Wow. I can't imagine being up at school and feeling so ripped and torn from your family and knowing that your mom was going through what she
Mhm.
was going through. Was it just you and your family that reevaluated your life and what you were going to do, or did it affect your four other siblings?
We all were on our own paths and it all affected us very differently. So, like very traditional Latino family, there is like a 15-year difference between myself and my youngest sister.
Yeah.
And so when I'm having my midlife crisis, she is, a freshman or more along those lines in high school. And
Yeah.
so for her, she was just trying to find whatever normalcy there was.
Right.
She was literally living with my parents. And so her proximity to my mom's illness kind of like shaped her relationship with life and death. And I think that where I was at 25, it reshaped my identity and relationship with time.
Right.
I realized that time was so finite. And so now when people are like, why are you rushing through everything? And I'm like, we don't know how many minutes we have. Like,
Yeah.
how do we maximize the minutes? And that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But it is, for me, you see the juxtaposition between the youngest and the eldest. I have a twin sister.
Yeah.
She was pursuing her master's at the time. And for her, she went more into books because it was the thing that she could control. And I just kind of just took a step back and I was like, what am I doing?
Why am I
Why am I here?
Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
So you have this kind of aha moment of like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be in law school. Did you have an idea of what you were supposed to do, or you just knew that law school was not in alignment?
The only idea that I knew I had to do was to marry my high school sweetheart.
Okay.
So he wanted to get married after college.
Yeah.
And so we did long distance for 2 years in college. And then he transferred to UC Irvine. And if people are listening and they're not familiar with Southern California, there is a big distinction between Los Angeles County and Orange County.
Yes.
And my whole life, I'm born and raised in LA. I had never until
The
he
orange
was 19, the orange curtain. Like people talk about that and it is a real thing. I had never been this far down the 5 or the 405.
Yeah.
And so he went to UC Irvine, which is in Orange County, past the orange curtain. And I remember driving down the freeway that we go from like 3 rickety lanes on the 5 all the way out like through Buena Park. And all of a sudden you get to these expansive 5-sided freeways on each side and carpool lanes and toll roads. And I'm like, what
Strip malls.
is this place? It's like all the palm trees fully linear, like each 13 inches apart or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this place? Like, this is magical.
Yeah.
And so it was my first exposure to Orange County. And I wanted to go to law school. And I said, I just need to do this on my own. I need to get these things in order. And I don't think I could be a wife and a good student at the same time. I make up all of these rules.
Right.
Or I should say, I used to make up rules because if I could control things, then I thought it would result in happiness. And at that point in time, I realized that I controlled everything to that point and I was wildly unhappy. So I think I started releasing the grip on control or this notion of control. And when I didn't tell anybody I was walking away from law school. I went on scholarship. I went to the dean and I said, I'm not doing well. My mom's not doing well. And they said that they would honor the scholarship for 3 years. So I knew I was leaving school, but I didn't think I was leaving school. And
Right.
so part of the scholarship was to have campus housing. But if I'm not a student, I don't get campus housing. So there I am in West Los Angeles, one of the most expensive zip codes in all of California. And I'm like, what do I do? And so I called my boyfriend and I said, hey, I just left school. And he's like, great. Wow. Do you want to get dinner? I was like, no, I left. And he had this like rickety pickup truck. And he was just like, okay. I said, can you help me move out? And for him, it's always been yes. Just yes. Like
he's just
and
waiting for you to come on back.
He was. He's like, my plan, it's working. No, so he packed me up. We moved back to my parents' home. I didn't know where else to go. Yeah. And I just said, I really want my mom to see us get married. And I didn't think that she would still be with us. And so he proposed shortly thereafter. And then we decided to get married about 2.5 months later.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's amazing what like sickness or a life and death or like situation will really make you reevaluate your life. And when you look back at your 25-year-old self, how much of those priorities and what you found were important in that period of time still ring true for you today?
Oh, to keep the people you love as close as humanly possible.
And you're still married to your high school sweetheart.
I'm still married to my high school sweetheart. I still talk and text my mom every single day and my sisters. And so there's 5 children in my parents' family, so a total of 7 of us. And then we each have spouses. So we have multiple text rings. It's like one with the spouses because the spouses love us, but they're like, we do not need to be in the mix with y'all. Then we have like the sisters text and we have the parents and we have our brother text. And so there's a lot of communication all the time. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah. And everybody's still close. And
in each other's business. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so speaking of business, in each other's business, how did you decide to start your business? What gave you the courage to just get out there? You left law school, you get married, you don't know what you're going to do. How did you decide to follow photography?
So I think for people who are listening, how about we start with the theme?
Yeah.
Because I think the theme will carry us through the first part of our lives because I think that if somebody hears my story, the brain does one of two things. It looks for similarities and opposites.
Okay.
And so I think that in my story, there's going to be a lot of opposites. People didn't go to law school. They might not be female. They might not be brown. They might not be an immigrant. And so what I want to do is just create the theme. And the theme that I didn't know was being created then, which is what I know to be true now, is to consistently choose the unknown and to consistently choose the uncomfortable. I didn't know that I was doing it then. And now I have to make the active decision to choose that again and again. At the time when I didn't know I was making that decision, I didn't have anything to lose.
Right.
I didn't have anything. And however my life and career has really grown, it is that much more uncertain and more uncomfortable. And I do distinctly feel like I have things to lose. So it is harder now to choose the unknown than it was then. So for people who are watching and listening, you might be at a point where you know that where you're at is not serving you. And it can be in a small way. It's not serving your health, or it's not serving your home. It's not serving your career. It's not serving your purpose or ambition. And so if we go back to that point, we had just gotten married, and I absolutely loved the fact that there was a photographer there. And I realized that that photographer wasn't documenting just a wedding. He didn't know he was documenting a miracle. My mom was not supposed to be there. My mom wasn't even supposed to walk. So she had palsy. She was bald. She limped down the aisle. But why am I going to cry? Dang it.
Yeah, I know. I just got whole body
We
chills
are not
right
crying
now.
today. We are not
Chicken
crying today.
skin.
He documented a miracle. And that's, to me, was like, this is powerful. This man has a gift. And his gift comes in physical form. And so I came back home. I got a pink letter from UCLA Law School, and they said, it's time for you to come back and get your scholarship. And I was a newlywed. We were living in this tiny beat up apartment in a really ripe area of LA. And I sat across my brand new husband, and I just started crying. And I said, I don't want to go back, and I don't know what to do. And he said, if you can do one thing for the rest of your life, what would you want to do?
Yeah.
I said, I want to be a photographer.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
Hold the phone, babe.
You don't own a camera. And I was like, I know. But bro,
I will figure
if
it
I
out.
had one. And so I would just want to park that there, because somebody's not listening to this and be like, I need a camera. Or maybe they are. But the thing is, there is something.
Yeah.
There was something in me that knew that that could be something that I could attach a skill set or something about. Where did I get that belief? I have no clue. But there is somebody who's listening, and there's a thing that's been put in them to be a therapist, to be a sports professional, to be a podcaster. The idea doesn't come to you unless you're open to receive it. And then you have to make the courageous decision to say, I choose this despite the reality of what I think it could become. Right. And I didn't know that at the time. And I made that declaration. We had that conversation October, November, and Christmas. He goes to where anybody might go for a camera, and he goes to Best Buy. And he's like, what is a camera that a professional, and now that as a photographer, you don't really go to Best Buy looking for gear, but it was called a prosumer. So he bought me a very simple camera, and we didn't have money for lenses. We didn't have money for memory cards. We didn't have money for anything, but we got the body. And so Christmas, I open it up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a camera. My life is going to begin. And I realize that I need to start renting, because I don't have money, and I don't want to get into debt, because my parents, they had lost 2 homes. They were wildly in debt. They changed their life, and I saw that as a kid. And so in my mind, it's been ingrained, you pay for things in cash. You pay for what you can afford. And so started renting gear, and I just started offering people, like, I will shoot you. It doesn't matter. And I got told, no, 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 no. And so here again, you come up with a theme. Choose the unknown. There's a lot of people after 100 or 200 no's would just say, like, this is it. And I think that for the first yes, I was just trying to get as much practice as possible. We could fast forward and say that in the first year, without having a website, I would get my photos and burn them on a CD, and I would put a white bow around them, and I would send them in a package to people who might want to hire me. And so I did everything they said you shouldn't do if you want to build a business. And in my first year of business, I made $100,000. And Kelly, I have to tell you, some people hear that and that's not a lot of money, but to me, 26 years old.
That's huge.
My dad had not made $100,000 for a family of 7 in 3 years combined. So I was just like, we're going to Claim Jumper. Like the whole family. We're ordering drinks. Dad ordered a Sprite. Because like we went out, it would be like my dad could get a drink, right? He'd get like his, I don't know, whatever, club soda. We all had to have table water. And I'm like, we're going out. We're getting appetizers. We're doing the whole thing. And in my mind, like, Clam Jumper or Olive Garden, like that's it. That's fine
So we
dining.
were Sizzler. We were
Okay.
Sizzler. It's okay. Yeah.
So
Give me that kids bar.
That's right.
Yeah.
Endless servings.
Yeah.
And so that kind of just changed my life. And through that process, I started realizing that there was people who were asking questions. There was other people out there. There were other lost, unqualified, unprofessional, unfunded people who looked at me and said, how did you make it work? So I didn't step onto the scene being like Annie Leibovitz.
Yeah.
Not remotely. I actually wasn't all that good,
Yeah.
but I remained undaunted. And then I started posting on a blog and I just started sharing what I was learning. People being attached to that. They started asking questions and I would answer all these questions and they said, no, we want to go deeper. So for instance, I would share XYZ and they would ask other questions. And I thought to myself, they don't actually want to know how I'm building the business. They actually want the exact words that I'm using to close a client.
Yeah.
So one day I blocked out everything and I wrote down all of my emails on a Word doc.
Yeah.
Like when somebody calls or inquires via email for a client, then what's my response?
Yeah.
Then my availability, then pre-qualification, then contract. I just wrote them all out.
Yeah.
I put it in a Word doc. I saved it as a PDF. I literally uploaded it to an online store. It was a shop. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just here. And that first day, within 24 hours, we had sold over 100. And I thought to myself, I fell asleep and then I woke up with $2,000 in my bank account.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And that was the first juncture of building a career that was multiple six figures, but helping other people. And in the process of helping other people, AKA sharing what you know, you build trust. And when you build trust with people, they're willing to pay in small payments along the way. And as I did that, I was also consulting for small and medium-sized businesses because at the time, this is like 2008, 2009, and these businesses are saying, hey, can you teach our team what to do with what you're
Close
doing?
deals.
I mean, or just like with what you're doing on social.
Yeah.
And I didn't set out to say like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I would just do. And I did more than the average person, which meant my learning curve was a lot sharper. You become a professional by the amount of reps that you do, by the amount of clients that you see, the sales calls you close, the posts that you post on social. I just happen to have a higher frequency for that and the unattachment to having people having an opinion. And so on the back of that, we had a revenue stream for consulting. We had a revenue stream from the digital products that we continued to put out. And then we had a revenue stream when I was hired as a photographer to do shoots for magazines as well as clients. And so all of a sudden we had all these arms of the business and life began to really change.
Wow. You know what? There are so many things that are coming up just as you as a person. One, you're super resilient, like waiting for that yes and being okay with the no, working without maybe the positive reinforcement, just showing up online, putting something out there, answering people's questions without thinking about it as a way to make money, as really like, how can I be of service? How can I provide this PDF? And you said it best, like you built trust in your community and they were able to reimburse you with that. But what is so fun is that when I was at USC Business School, I had a professor tell me, if you want to be a millionaire in California, I mean, I went to school at USC, so it was in California, and that's just what it was. He was like, you need 5 different streams of income.
Ooh.
You cannot just be the person who clocks in and gets your W-2. You need to think about how you're reinvesting that income to diversify so that you don't have to be the hourly employee who's doing photography shoots for clients or for magazines, that you have something that makes you money while you sleep that is of value to your community, and then a consultancy. I mean, you're basically doing that without even
knowing.
Without having that business degree to know like, okay, how am I diversifying? How am I providing value? How am I going into something, maybe not being the expert, but knowing I could become the expert or I could learn it. And I think that's really so inspiring about your whole story for me, is that so many people hold themselves back because they're being a perfectionist. They see other people that maybe have more qualifications than them, or they don't realize that they can figure it out along the way. They think that everyone before them had all the answers and they don't. What keeps your risk appetite high, and what keeps you like excited about creating and providing service?
So one thing I'll say to rewire, I've in my later years, I've learned that you can reshape your brain. And the stories you've told yourself are not true. You just choose to believe them to be true. You can go back and look at the same set of facts and choose a different feeling towards the facts. And all of this really came a lot later. But what I would say is there is always somebody who knows more than you. So people are like, well, I can't start because somebody knows more. now that I've been doing this over a decade, I realize how little I know. So if I held on to the belief that I couldn't start or do because somebody else knew more, I would never get started to begin with. So just accept that whatever phase of business you're in, or life, or parenthood, somebody knows more. So just because somebody knows more, it should not keep us in a place of stagnation on the couch, scrolling and reading what other people are doing because they apparently know more. Maybe they do, but they also realize that other people know more. And so I think that for me, the things that happened with my mom specifically, I realized that life is just too short. And I thought to myself, it was New Year's Eve, and my mom had a brain surgery, and they had wheeled her out, and she had ended her surgery right about the time that visiting hours were over. So we were waiting downstairs. My dad was able to see her, and he had said one of the nurses had told him, like, just bring the kids up. And so the kids, I'm in my 20s, the kids. Yes, I'm always getting my daughter.
You're always going to be
I
a
tell
kid.
I tell my daughter too. She's like, Mommy, I'm a big girl. I was like, baby, when you're 30, you're my baby.
Yeah.
So my dad said, okay, the kid can come up. So we see our mom, and I just realized that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And I think that when my mom was there and we didn't know the outcome, she wasn't talking about the things that she had done. She was talking about the things that she had wished she had done. And we hear that a lot from people in older age. And I can't tell you like the impact that it made on me, because all of a sudden, the only thing I look at now is, what am I gonna live to regret and not do? And I have to understand that that was the greatest gift, because not everybody looks that way, but we're all going to pass on. And we don't know when. And so if I pass tomorrow, I think I would honestly say, job well done. You didn't leave any stone unturned, and you failed miserably, and you failed publicly, and you made very poor decisions, and you said things that you shouldn't have said. And if you can go back, you would try to rectify, but you did it. And so it is better for me to apologize for a mistake than never having to apologize for never having tried. And I think that's what I hold on to.
Oh, it's such a beautiful lesson, and you really have done a wonderful job, and I know you'll continue to do so. Don't go anywhere. Like, you have so much more work to do, but that must be like a really good feeling as a mom who's also a business entrepreneur and a wife. How do you keep all three balls, mom, entrepreneur, wife, in the air, and then your own personal ball? Like, what does balance look like in your life? Is there no such thing? Is there a thing? Like, how do you keep your priorities?
Okay, so I'll start with the disclaimer. The disclaimer is, I actually don't talk so much about it because I know that my situation is wildly atypical. But because it is atypical, I don't want somebody to look at it and say that it cannot be somebody else's reality.
Okay.
I will say that I am shaping my version of delight and surprise and purpose and fulfillment, having not had a model of that before. So the little that I do show online around what this is, I simply want to not say this is the right way. I'm probably doing a ton of things wrong. I mean, we'll just start saving for Luna's therapy now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what I am doing is just documenting and showing that there is a path to yes, should you decide to make some sacrifices. So I do not believe in balance. It doesn't exist in my life. And I just think that where your attention goes, there you are. And we could live in that strenuous place of, I should be doing that. I could be there. And instead, I just have clearly communicated with my husband, my partner, my business partner, my soulmate, that when I am working, I am the CEO. And as much as I would love to do other things in that time, my priority is the business. Now, of course, are there times where my daughter walks in with a book and I stop working and I read? Absolutely. Do we do lunch breaks together when I can? Absolutely. But we have clearly defined that I am an entrepreneur who's a mom. I'm not a mom who's an entrepreneur. There's not a right or wrong. I will absolutely keep her as my top priority. However, in the workspace and sphere, we have defined that this is what I do. And I had said, the only way that I can keep up this pace is if I have, and I was speaking to my husband, and this was before we adopted our daughter. And so we met with an adoption, he calls himself like a facilitator. You have to have conversations because adoption is very atypical and you don't really know when it's going to happen. And there's a lot of situations that are wildly different. And so we had to have conversations around, well, what are we actually agreeing to? And when this happens. And so we're trying to prepare an open communication of what it would look like. And so I had said, I feel wildly fulfilled when I can teach and speak and create and consult. And I sit as an advisor. And if there's board meetings, I need to be there. And we always travel together. And I thought to myself, me doing that without you makes me not want to do it. So is there a world in which you and our future child, who we haven't met yet, can still make this happen? And what he said was, I will do my best, but I can't guarantee. Then I had to accept the terms of his business partner to business partner saying, things will change. We don't know what it is. But now she's going to be 5 in January.
Yay.
And I know, yay, just yay. I can't believe we've kept a human alive
You
for 5
did
years.
it. Yeah.
So 99% of all travel related activities we've done together. And so he goes with her. So just yesterday, I was in San Diego for a mergers and acquisitions event, and we stayed at a hotel. They had a slide there, and he got her a cheeseburger, and they were living their best, going to museums and doing dog parks and things while I was there. And I was able to take our lunch break together. Then I went back to the event, and then I did a happy hour, and then I decided to do dinner with Luna and JD. And in that moment at the hotel with this guitar player playing and an illuminated Christmas tree, I thought to myself, this is success. Without them, this doesn't matter. So the fact that he has completely come in and said, you do you, and we do this together, and we're winning on all fronts. And she's just, 87 years old. And so she's just ready to travel the world. And she was asking one more day in the hotel. I was like, girl, Mom's got to do a podcast tomorrow. We're going home. But it feels for us in our version and how we've communicated. I don't think it's right. I just think it's right for us.
Right. Well, it sounds like your husband is a phenomenal support to your dreams and your business when it comes to, because I have a little bit of the same type of a relationship that you have, and where Chris is like my right-hand man, but he also he's the coach and the captain of Team Home. And he's got that on lock. How do you protect his mental health? How do you protect his personal time? How do you make sure he's feeling fulfilled outside of his parenting role too?
I think we have a lot of work to do with that. I think that if you're familiar with Enneagram, he's an Enneagram 2.
Okay.
So supporter. He loves being in the support role, and he loves supporting Luna. He loves supporting me. And even when I ask him like, hey, what are you doing for you? He's like, I got to do that. I got to do that. And I think that we just had this conversation yesterday driving home from San Diego, and he had said, what I should have done, I was at a business event in Napa 3 weeks ago, and he had said, I should have asked for you to be done with that day, and then maybe I would go do a wine tasting. And then he had mentioned another event that we had been. He's like, that would have been really great for me to go and do that workout. And I said, okay, so I see a pattern. You won't let yourself, it's just him. He won't, because he's just like, oh, it's time with you guys. And I don't want, you've come off of a really long day and like you go into mom mode and bath and dinner. And I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. And I think that we need to get better at just, maybe I need to force him, encourage more, give him the permission, whatever that is. And then also just empower him to like ask for space. I call myself like a Venus flytrap. Like if I'm your friend, I only know how to like come in and I'm just going to soak you in for all you're worth. It's like, I'm 100% or I'm 0. And so I have to learn how to like peel back a little bit and just say like, you can go out and do what it is you need to do. I don't think he'll ask for it on the front end alone.
Especially if he's an Enneagram 2 and he's a supporter.
I know. I know.
Well, it sounds like he supported you along the whole transition path. You go into becoming a photographer and you pivot. You're helping people. You've downloaded, you've created this PDF. You've made money while you're sleeping. What's next? How do you continue to evolve as an entrepreneur and away from photography into coaching people for social media, doing masterminds, doing consultancies? Like, how do you make that transition? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, like you said, they think, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor, and they put all their eggs in that basket. They feel so overwhelmed by maybe the commitment of their education or the financial commitment, and they get stuck in something that they don't love. Like I look at entrepreneurs like you, and I'm like, it's the people who get up and move and they pivot and they change and they're not afraid of stepping off the curb. Those are the ones that have what I consider success, which is the freedom of time. And you mentioned that is like the most important part of, in my opinion, that's success. Like if I have time to be with my boys, to get a workout in, to meet with my team, to see my high school besties, to have a date with Chris, I'm like, I'm winning. Time is everything. How do you make that transition, and how do you keep evolving in your business?
If we go back to the theme at the beginning, that was to constantly choose the unknown. If we listen to ourselves intuitively, we know when we get a little bit tired of the same thing. The thing that once gave you life and made you super excited, when I unboxed my camera, it was like a lightning rod went through me. And then 8-9 years into doing it professionally and getting to the top 1% of the field, I was just like, it had turned into a job. And when that started happening, I started getting percolations of there's got to be something else or different. But it came with such a courageous decision because at that time, all the revenue streams were coming from the photography business. So we had client revenue stream, we had the digital resources. And by this time, we had created a photography magazine. We had video downloads for like $2.99. We had multiple digital resources. I was also being a consultant for for businesses in the photography world. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to make a big pivot. But if you have 100% and you're running at 100%, something has to go. And I started realizing that without making space, I couldn't fill it with the next thing. And I knew that I wanted to step out and serve a bigger market. I had no reason to think that I would be able to do that, but I'm like, I want to try. I would rather take a business hit trying than not trying at all. And so we decided, and this is very much my personality, I immediately let go of all consulting. And I'm like, okay, I can't be on any more contracts. Then the digital resources were going on their own. And I was blogging heavily for photographers. And I said, I was blogging 6 days a week. I'm like, that's going to cut back down to 3 days a week. And while we know the more we blog, the more money we made. And we're just going to peel that on back and accepting that I was going to take less clients and the transition for me would be 2 years. And so because we have like a book of clients, you could actually forecast. We knew the revenue that was gonna come in, where we needed to be. And then all of a sudden I started creating blank space. And in that blank space, I said, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna host an event. I think it was like $2,000. And it was gonna be a one-day event in Los Angeles where I was gonna teach business owners. This is the first departure. It was way too stupid. I bit off more than I could chew. And we're gonna teach people how to build a brand and market it on social media. And this was like 2015. And we host this event, but I hire videographers. I think I hired like 9 videographers. We hired a rig. I hired a producer, hair and makeup. Like it was, I just thought, well, it was a production. I was like, well, this is what one does. I had no idea. I was literally flying by the seat of my pants. And at that point in time, we had bought a house in Newport. It was the very first time that we had bought in Newport. We had a construction project that was taking longer and costing 3 times the amount of money. We invested multiple 6 figures on this event. And I just had this idea. I'm like, I think I'm going to put this out online like a class. Like I'm thinking to my mind, oh, I'm going to be one of the first people to ever put a course online. When people have been doing it for years, it was never in my ecosystem. And so I didn't know how to do it. And so I'm online one night and somebody says, oh, there is this mastermind. I'm like, what is this word mastermind? And so I go through this online class and at the end he pitches it, it's $25,000. And I was like, this guy is crazy. Who in the world is going to spend $25,000?
Need a few of those.
I know. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, what a fool. Who would ever buy? And then the next day I put down $1,000 deposit and I was like, I think this guy can teach me something. And the way that I had rationalized it, I sat with JD and I said, okay, can I make $25,001 on one thing new that I learned from this guy? And I said, I think I can. I think I can learn $25,000 worth. And I was like, it'll go to the byline of the business. I have 12 months to make it happen. I go in and I'm like, so I have this idea. I have 9 versions of this course and I have this, and this. He's like, okay, great. That's a lot. How about you just prove that somebody would buy from you who's not a photographer? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, put restrictions on an offer. He's like, in 2 months, can you create a course and can you sell it? Low ticket, just see who's gonna buy it. Just build out an audience away from photographers. This was such a novel concept. I'm like, test it? Like, oh my gosh. So put together an Instagram for Business course. It was $197. And I just thought to myself, I told JD, my husband, I was like, okay, we have 2 months. What if we do like $25,000 with this project? I'm like, wouldn't that be like, we have our ROI in like the first quarter. I'm like, let's do this. We opened cart for 5 days and we made $255,000 in 5 days. And that's when everything in my world shook up because I realized that I had a business online. I didn't have an online business. And an online business is where you have things and structures in place that create multiple revenue streams that exist in and outside of you. That if you build an online business, people can buy products or services or resources from you that you are not deploying against, and you make money.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I realized, oh, we could start layering these things. And that's what we did. So we launched that course every 4 months. We had made over $1 million in 12 months. Then we launched another course that was $2,000, made another $1 million. And so things just started really shifting when I understood that the market gets bigger, but I had to go really deep with the content that I was providing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fascinating. I remember taking my first online course, Taking Care of Babies, to figure out how to get my first son, Sebastian, to sleep. Do you
Yes.
know this course?
Yes.
Do you know this woman?
Yes.
You know this Instagram?
Yes.
And I was fascinated by it. And somehow I knew someone in her business, and I took him to coffee, and I sat down and I said, I need to understand, like, she's selling a course. I think she was selling it for like 70 or 80 bucks at the time. And I was thinking, like, how do I spend more time with this little boy that I've just birthed? I need to be with my kids. Like, I'm seeing clients, 6 to 8 clients a day. What lit me up made me feel like I was missing out. Like, I wanted to help people, but I didn't want to spend 60 hours a week sitting down with clients, going through their food diaries, helping them learn to balance blood sugar, when I'm like, this is repeatable. This is in my book. Just read my book. Like, how do I do this? And she's like, well, let me just show you the back of Kajabi. And she opened up her Kajabi like home screen, and I was like, oh my God, that's like millions of dollars. Like, what is happening? Like, how is that possible? And I think what's so amazing with what you do and what you're willing to share is that just showing me that, I went, okay, cool. I can do that.
That's right.
I can do that.
Yep.
And that is the only reason, like online courses, being able to sell something that I invested, and I tell this to women all the time. I'm like, I invested $8,000 in those courses. Like, that at the time was like, oh my God, that's 3 or 4 months of rent, of my rent controlled Brentwood apartment. But like, how am I ever going to get down to be by my parents in Orange County, and to have Sebastian and his future, little brothers or sisters, like, be with their grandparents? How will I have time to like spend with them if I'm the income and my income's only coming in as an hourly employee? Like, there's only so much you can ratchet up your hourly rate to the point where you're like, is this highway robbery? Like, this doesn't even feel good to me to ask for this, I'm a people-pleasing woman, like first child woman. Like, I don't even know how to do that. And that ability, like even this podcast right now, I know there are going to be people listening that are like, I could do a course. Like, I have something to share. I have knowledge or education. I have motivation that I can transfer to someone else to give them that type of time freedom, financial freedom. Like, it changed everything. It's the only reason why I had, like, I was laughed at. Chris and I looked at a house in the neighborhood we live in 18 months prior to buying our first home. And I remember calling Bank of America, which is where I've had all my business since the beginning of starting Be Well by Kelly. And I was basically laughed at. He was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to need to like get your W-2s or your like 10, because I was 1099ing myself at the time. It's like, we're good. Like, if you're just going to need some time. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I need to figure out how to like make this happen. And it's because of people like you. It's because of like other women who showed me that it was possible, that I even knew that it could be something. And I think that I'm constantly like my eyebrow girl. I'm like, you laminate, you do the eyebrow. Like, you have a skill here. Like, you could transfer this skill. You could share this skill. You're an hourly employee. Like, how do we take you out of that? How do we build multiple streams of income for you? How can you think bigger? What is so interesting to me is you went from $179 to $2,000 offering. How do you get the women you work with or the men that you work with out of their own head when it comes to their worth?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
Okay.
I really am, because I do well in facts.
Yeah.
And despite my best efforts, I can't change your mind. I just can't. So when it comes to getting somebody out of their mind, all I do is I hold up a series of facts. I say, when I look at these facts, I see something very promising and profitable, and I've seen a history, and I could lay out facts. And I said, that's what I see given the same amount of facts. If you would like to apply a different emotion, thought path, or decision based on those facts, go ahead.
Yeah.
If you would like to borrow my belief because it is not of you, I got you. but I can't convince you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do better. I have a twin sister and she's all feeling.
Yeah.
She's an Enneagram 7, has to be fun. And she feels, if she doesn't feel it. And I am like pure logic.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people who I've been fortunate to work with, okay, so back up a little bit. We did the first course for 197. Then we launched another course. Then we launched another course. And what I started realizing was there was a friction point. People wanted a membership. They wanted ongoing continuation. I had never built a membership. And I was like, I don't want to build a membership. That's just too much
That's
ongoing,
a lot.
And then we had said, okay, well, if we launch it and 500 people will join, that would be a game changer, another revenue stream, things that we could streamline and get the team surrounded by. So we did that and we launched it to 2,444 people. That blew our minds. And we said, okay, there's something here because with the courses, they were launch-based. With the digital resources, we had to put out content to point to that. But with the membership, we had MRR, monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden, we learned how to build out a membership. But on the back of the membership, when we were having a membership for marketing, people had said, but it's so difficult because we want to get our marketing and we want to put it out on social media, which meant in order for us to become integrated with TikTok, with Meta, with LinkedIn, with Twitter, we actually had to have an API, which is like a brain of a business. But that meant we had to have our own tech stack. So in 2020, while the world is on fire, we had bought another house in Newport. We had to move into an apartment because the house wasn't ready and we had just been placed for adoption. So I have a newborn. We have literally 13 hours to pack up our entire house. My poor husband, I've never seen just this man of gold for 13 hours just rail through this house. I mean, we probably threw away or lost 100 million things in that process, but he was just like, here we go. Everything, we're just pushing everything out. And it's at that time that I realized, in order for this to survive, we actually have to become a tech company. We have to have a SaaS component, a software as a service. I had never in my freaking life even heard of the word software, SaaS. I had to Google what it actually meant. Yeah. And then along the framework is to choose the unknown. We knew that there was a glass ceiling to what we could do with a membership. We actually had to come up. So then I had to hire a CTO. I had to figure out what dev is and how to hire like this dev team, the investments that we're making with that. And so with every iteration of what that was, I didn't know it then, but it's preparing me now for me to sit across other 7 and 8 figure business owners and say, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff to be dangerous. So if you would like to choose the limiting belief that you don't have what it takes, I patently disagree with you, but you do you. That works like 99% of the time. I mean, like it's just, when you just lay out logically, none of us are guaranteed the future and none of us are fortune tellers. So given the facts of what we have, what do we choose to believe? Mm-hmm. Give me the belief and promise not to quit. You can't lose. Believe, don't quit. Yeah. You can't lose.
Yeah.
That's my big promise.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you along the way are choosing the unknown, like API.
Right.
You just said, like you're using an acronym that I have no idea what that means. SaaS.
Yes.
Software as a service.
Yeah.
I think I learned about that in Dan Martell's book. So like you're choosing to build this business in an unknown place. Like what does it look like now for people to be a part of that membership or to learn from you or to consult with you or to do one of your courses? Like how are you showing up to meet these 8, 9, 10 figure CEOs and level them up?
So oftentimes people believe that in order to teach somebody, you should be 10 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. So when we look at, let's say, if I wanted to get into hosting a show or creating a brand, I would look to Oprah or Martha Stewart.
Right.
And they're the pinnacle, they're the apex of this pyramid.
Right.
But oftentimes, the most people that we're going to learn from would be somebody who's 1 or 2 steps ahead of us.
Right.
They're closer to the epicenter. They're closer to what my reality is. And so I firmly believe that how I've been able to intercept people is sharing content of what I'm doing. So I have a podcast and I'm really open on that podcast. And some people are like, how are you sharing this stuff?
Yeah.
And I'm doing it on video and audio the same way I created the blog where I showed the good, bad, and the fugly of growing a photography business. And I'm doing that first and foremost for me.
Yeah.
If I stack proof that I have done something despite feeling completely overwhelmed and scared out of my freaking mind.
Yeah.
But I documented it. I can go back and be like, that's how you felt this 7, 8, 9 times ago. Let's see if we can do it again. And so I document that openly. And crazy enough, I have a mastermind for 7-figure founders who are women, and half of them came in saying, I have a SaaS application. Half of them came in saying, I came from the podcast because this one time that you had discovered about what it meant to invest for equity, so serve as an advisor for equity. And that's something I wanted to learn of. And I started realizing that what you put out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and people follow that journey, they say, I actually want to learn from you. And so I have realized that deal flow for our investments, deal flow for me to sit as advisor is really coming off not just like a network, but a lot of silent watchers and listeners who for months are watching and smelling to see, do you have the thing that I think I need at this point in my journey? And so I wouldn't say it's anything glamorous or all that strategic. It is literally being okay to document and admit that you don't know what you don't know, and then finding a way to get what it is you want, taking a hit, talking about the hit, talking about how you came back from the hit, and people are like, okay, I think I can learn from you.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point because if you're just 2 steps ahead, you're really still in the trenches of remembering how to get through something, to move through something, to market something, to and what's so interesting is a lot of times people show the good part of their job, and maybe I'm equally as guilty of this, of not showing myself like on the floor in my bedroom, on Zoom calls with my sister, still in my robe, then running to take a shower, then going to do a video. Like it's kind of a cluster sometimes, and I forget to document most of it. But it's that part, like it's showing the whole piece of the puzzle that allows people to make a really good decision about where they want to go next. Like I remember a class at SC that I loved so much. It was sales strategy, and the sales reps would come in and they'd be like, yeah, I sell Gallo wine. Oh, I work for Stryker Medical. I work for Pfizer. Like, this is what my job is. I get a car, senior in college, 401k, financial freedom. Like I have an expense account. I take doctors out, and then they wouldn't expect it, but the teacher would prompt the students at the end to raise their hand and be like, what do you hate about your job? What sucks? And what's so interesting about that was some of them would be like, like visually uncomfortable. Like they didn't want to show any cracks in their armor. They didn't want to give you the real truth. But I tell you, the ones who stood up there and they were like, yeah, it really sucks to get a no. It really sucks to not even get talked to. It stinks when you get there and they think you're a glorified caterer. It really is horrible when you feel like a doctor, the people you're taking out to dinner just want to be at that restaurant. They don't want to be with you. Like your boss has to ride with you in a car and tell you what you did wrong. Like that was the stuff where you're like, okay, do I really want to do this job or not? Like, because I think a lot of people just see the good and they make this investment in time, finances, and energy to start a business, but no one's being like, hey, look, I've been there before you and just a few steps. And this is all the S you're going to walk through.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so, empowering about what you do and your podcast, and why, I love also that some of them are very short for commutes that people aren't driving very far, where you're like, okay, let's talk about like the strategies to get your audience engaged and buying into this. What do you think your biggest success has been over your career, and what can people learn from your biggest failure?
My biggest success would just be consistency. I think that it is the basics. I'm very consistent with the basics. And I'm tempted, like anybody else, to abdicate a lot of the grunt work because, well, I'm like, it's above my pay grade, or I've been doing it long enough so that I get it. And I think that the level of consistency has really, really sharpened what I know. And there are, for all intents and purposes, 3 types of founders. You have the marketing focused, you have the people culture focused. So you think about like the CEO of Southwest, and you have product. This is like Steve Jobs. If I know my power play is marketing and brand, and it is, then I should be in it. I shouldn't be relegating the things that are my superpower, because the minute that I step further and further away from the thing that I know I'm good at, I'm unparalleled at, then I become a muted version of what I think I should be. I'm muted when it comes to product. I'm muted when it comes to culture. And so I'm saying what I'm going to be consistent in is the grunt work for as long as humanly possible. And where I am the weakest, I will bring in other A-player ninjas to offset product on the side of our business and culture and people on the side of our business. So I'm most proud of my greatest success would be consistency. And it is a double-edged sword because I am responding to all of my DMs every day, and I am creating my content, and I am doing my own podcast, and I'm writing my own newsletters. I am writing the blog posts. It's me. And I think that I always thought, well, when I can get a copywriter, like when I get a funnel hacker, and I just realized this is what you do. So be the best at it and don't relegate until you feel so confident that you have found somebody who can do it just as good as you can. My greatest failure would probably be that I didn't have direct enough conversations with people earlier. And now, if I go back to this linear facts, letting go of a team member, admitting if KPIs were not hitting, OKRs, I need to have conversations. I need to be able to say, real life, our COO has now been with us for 4 years. I love her. I am nothing without her. I told her, I'm like, if you ever go away, I'm going to hunt you down. Like, it's me or nobody. I'm like, it's mafia style. Yeah. And so she has gotten to know me so well that we were in a meeting and it was a person on the team. And I do not do well with a bunch of talking points. I don't do well with a bunch of options. To me, optionality and talking betrays you didn't do it. You didn't do your work and you don't know it well enough. Yeah. If you're good at what you do, you come to me and you come with 1 to 3 options. You explain each option. You explain why you think, give me a suggestion. If I disagree with you, I'll come back with data and facts and analytics. You give me more than 3 and I am just completely over
like I'm doing the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we were in the middle, it was the 3 of us, we were in the middle of the meeting and she was like, I'm going to pause. She's like, okay, so Jasmine, we'll find another time to meet or we'll fill it up in Slack. I'm going to connect with her. And then the girl, not our COO, comes back to me and says, I just want to let you know I had a meeting and I completely understand this is the way that it's moving forward. Here are your 3 options. Here's what I suggest. All of it was done in Slack. And I'm like, didn't have to be a meeting. I absolutely freaking love it. You get it, girl. Let's go. And so it's just, to me, if there was too many meetings that I sat through and politely nodded when I said, I got it. I know what you're trying to say. Let's move on. That is not for everybody. That's not for everybody. And I need to be unapologetic about who I am because I know, I respect you. I want to play with other A players. And if you want to play ball with me, this is how I play ball. If you can be game with it, you know that I love, I respect, and when I win, you win, game over. But I should have done that much earlier in my career.
Do you think that your ability to be direct and to really have those standards has been over reps, over
just reps?
Okay, yeah.
Just reps.
Yeah.
It's just reps.
Yeah.
Because the first time you let go of somebody, you feel like it's going to end you. And then when it doesn't, you're like, okay, how do I get better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like, I've just sat through 857 meetings this year. How do I not do this again? How do I just say this? And it's honing in the messaging, but it's just reps.
Yeah.
And then it's reps. So I actually had a conversation today with an organizational psychologist, and she had said, self-awareness is great. So oftentimes entrepreneurs look at self-awareness as like, am I self-aware? Am I self-aware? She's like, so once you achieve self-awareness, it's actually a moot point if you actually don't have an anchor to an action set they're going to do to deploy against it. So you're self-aware that you are triggered in meetings where people have no point.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You know that that's a trigger. What are you going to do about it? She's like, as a CEO, she's like, you go before the meeting and you say, these are the things that I'm expecting. This is how the meetings run. Then you come in and if you're triggered, you say, oh, this wasn't happening. And I thought to myself, oh, okay. So yes, the reps led to self-awareness. Self-awareness then caused me to have more plans around what's going to trigger me or how do we run faster as an organization.
Well, your speed is kind of unmatched. So I have to understand a little bit about what day in the life of you looks like. And with all these different streams of income and all these different things that you do all the time, how do you keep it straight? Like, do you have a really rigid schedule?
I do.
Go with the flow? Like, how does it look?
Kelly.
To be, put me in your body, Jasmine. If you were my nutrition client, I'd just be like, okay, Jasmine, put me in your body. What time do you wake up?
It rubs people the wrong way.
I don't care. It's your life.
It rubs people the wrong way. And so this is what I will say. I will share my story and I don't think at all it's prescriptive. I don't think that people should do this. I'm not a firm believer. It's just, this is what works for me. So I naturally wake up between 4:30 and 5. I don't have an alarm. That's to me a marker of success. As I said, if I can not wake up to an alarm, I know I'm living a successful life. Because alarms, I don't do well with alarms. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So anyway, so I wake up between 4 and 5. I pray, I meditate, I work out, and I am home before 7 a.m. I realize that if I don't work out before 7, my heart, it's just too attached to the mornings with my daughter and my husband.
Same.
And so I just realized this is the price you pay for the life you want to live. And so I am home by 7. That's what she wakes up between 7, 7:30. So my husband and I have a cup of coffee, and then our little baby girl queen of the house. We'll wake up, we do breakfast together, and it's around 8:15. I get ready for the day, and I'm in my chair at 8:55. And I have a Asana task, a project management that is synced up with my Google Calendar. So my EA will say from 8:55 to 9:17, you have a break here. You engage with social media. It's like every minute of my day is planned. And so I had, coming here to the podcast, I had reminder, you have to leave. You should be gone right now. And I'm getting Google notifications. And then in the Google notification was like, here's a list of questions. Here's the things you have to do. When I go back home, I know the 4 things that I need to do, but I am done 99% of the time by 5. Because at 5, I want to be partner and mom and creative. And that's the price that I pay to do the things that I love. And while it's not balanced, I think that I've been able to live harmoniously.
Yeah. You're able to achieve your dreams without giving up that morning with your daughter and to have that cup of coffee with JD and to have those moments. Do you feel exhausted at the end of the day, or do you feel energized by what you've done?
It's and in both. What I've realized that when I lack clarity around what I'm doing, I find myself very much overwhelmed. And I find myself invigorated when I'm very clear about my mission and what we're doing in our objectives. And I just think that when you've been in the game over a decade, you have peaks and valleys. And so, I'm in a place of sheer and utter, like, let's go mode. But I could definitely say that in the beginning of the year and most of last year, it was not that. Just felt very, very, very tired. And it wasn't that the work that I was doing was different. It was just like, what am I being tethered to? I know I'm being called to something else. This was mostly last year and the beginning of this year. And then things in the summer just distinctly began to crystallize. And going into 2025, I'm like, oh, it feels like that scene in The Matrix. Everything's falling in. And I thought to myself, I remind myself, in the good, in the bad times, everything's happening for me. And when I'm feeling now going into 2025, I'm like, that was a no because of this. And that didn't work out because of this. And I met this person at this event that I got a backdoor ticket to that didn't even learn anything at the event, but I talked to somebody at lunch and this person introduced me to this person and everything's happening. Now we're go mode. And now I'm just like, 6 hours of sleep, let's go. But that's not always the case. And they have to leave space and time for both of those to exist.
Right. I feel like some of the best clarity comes from like a low place or a valley in your career. What were you feeling last year and like in the low point? What was the lack of clarity there that was making you feel sort of frenetic and not able to feel energized by the work you were doing?
Well, we need part 2 of the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. No, we actually do. But I think now, and I'm just a straight shooter. So my best perspective on what had really happened, at every point in my career, it felt like I had strategic risk ability. And I saw myself almost the way that Tarzan would swing from one vine to another. And Tarzan would be suspended in midair, AKA risk, until he grabbed the next plant, tree. And at this point in my career, we had successfully launched a SaaS business. And in successfully launching the SaaS business, hiring a CTO and a team, I realized that I'm probably not a tech founder. And that took so much for me to admit. I realized that without having the technical acumen and the things that we need, I know we can make this big and bigger. I don't think it could be the thing that I thought it could be. And to admit that is so hard. And to admit that would be, we put a president on the inside and she's killing it. But I needed this space to go out and say, if this isn't it, what is? So for a year, Tarzan just stayed suspended in midair. And I've never been good in stasis. I've never been good without next project identity. I went and did so much. I would go on like silent retreats. And I'm like, I didn't know my identity was put into this. I didn't know that me not being able to do something that I thought it could become. And so you had to mourn not the loss of reality, you had to mourn the loss of a future that you hoped you had. So you're sad about this idea. You're not sad about your current reality. And it wasn't until I came back and calibrated and I'm like, my God, woman, what you have done, 1% of SaaS founders will ever freaking do. How is that enough for you? And so multiple things of just saying, Will you allow it, same fact, and not say that it's something you cannot do, but it is something you did and it's shaping you to do something different? Can you not say that? I had to do a ton of real work healing around identity, ambition, what is enough, classification. And it wasn't until that point that I started seeing much different opportunities come in. And I still believe, I'm just gonna call my shot now, I believe that there is another tech build in me. And I shouldn't be saying that. I just, to be honest, I just feel like there is. I feel like there is. And it feels better now to go another build on a tech SaaS without my identity caught up in it. Because I was just like, okay, you've learned some lessons. You've taken it on the chin. You have an iron lung and you're missing a leg. You want to go back? And they're like,
and you're like, put me back in the ring.
Put me back in. And so that's not on the imminent horizon whatsoever. But I'm like, there's just some work that I have to do. I have to play some different games. I have to stretch in different ways. But I still think that there's something else in there. But I had to let go of what it meant about me. And that was the work. I didn't know that.
Well, I think we take on those identities and we take on like what I've heard through this last hour is just like all the risks that you take, all the risks you take in the unknown, all the belief that like you can learn it, you can work hard. I think it's kind of like a Jesse Itzler saying, it's like, you may not be the smartest in the room, but you're willing to work the hardest. And I think that's what I see you do that. Like I see you do that online. I see that you do that on your podcast and your community to share the work that you're doing and the time you're putting in. And I think what has been that history of like, if I put the work in, it works out. If I put the work in, it works out. And to have maybe it not be what you thought it was going to be, to not internalize that as a failure to you, but like what are we learning from that? And how can we come back like with even more? And heck yeah, let's do another tech.
I don't know. I would have to get JD on board. He's probably like, he's like, what?
No,
run, woman, run. Online, you can send a DM, but you can send somebody's story to somebody else. That's what I think was trying to happen. There was somebody who had seen one of my stories, and I think that they were trying to send that to somebody else, but they ended up sending me a DM, and it just said, she tries too hard. And when I had first read it, I was like, oh. But I am accustomed to drive-by comments, right? You think that you build a resilience, but it was the fact that you caught somebody that felt different than somebody actually putting their name and face behind a comment.
Like, I'll just put a comment here online.
And so I was like, I took it and I just sat with it and I thought to myself, you're right. I do try hard.
Yeah.
I try very hard. I actually try harder than most people because I am not the most talented. I'm not the richest. I'm not the cutest. I'm not the smartest. I just try hard. So if you say she tries too hard, I'm gonna take it as a freaking badge.
Yeah.
Make me a freaking button. I try hard. And if my trying is offensive to your eyes, unfollow me.
Yeah.
But for people who are willing to try hard, I'm your person.
Right. And that's what you have. You have a community. You have a little army of people who are like, what are we doing? How are we getting? And I, like that trying hard creates every day when you try every day, you get consistent and you stay consistent and you show up and you're there and you're able, like you said, those reps, when someone's posting 365 times a year, you're posting twice as much and you're getting in the trenches every single day and you're showing up. It really impacts all the female entrepreneurs around you. I know it impacts everyone who's trying to build their businesses as well, but at female entrepreneur to female entrepreneur, like just the connections that you make, the work that you put in, the effort that you show, the good, bad, and the fugly, as you say, it really does inspire. And it allows people like me who have no idea what it means to launch a SaaS company, to show up online consistently, to reach my audience, to have different offers. Like there's so much creativity in the content that you provide to your audience. It's how I continue to learn because I didn't learn how to be an entrepreneur in school. I just believed in myself and was passionate about it enough to like show up here. So I just want to thank you for all the time and effort, because you are trying hard and it does make a difference.
Thank you.
And it's digestible, which is really nice for me.
Thank you. Oh, that's funny. Like a pun. It's
Yeah.
digestible.
Yeah.
It's great on your gut.
Yeah, I got it. Well, before we close up today's podcast, I'm curious, what is next for you? Like, I know you're talking about a SaaS company, but what are you most excited about right now? What's coming down the pipe for you in 2025?
Okay. So at the time of this recording, this is going to be coming out like in
Early
really soon.
January.
Yeah, it's like just a couple weeks. So I'm going with the team to Deer Valley, and we're planning out 2025. And we know we like to do 3 projects a year. So one every 4 months. Like, so we have initiatives, we have KPIs, like this is the thing that we're going to do. And so we kind of left this space, and I know it sounds terrible, but I'm like, we have to leave space for magic. We have a few options floating around what we could do around this like third idea promotion, but I have a little bit of fire back in my belly, and I'm like, I want to do something new, and I want to try it new, and I want to make it messy. And so as a CEO, our job is to really look at not just like a P&L, but what is our cash runway, and to be able to go into a year and be like, we have cash, let's play. What can we create? How much of a swing can we like quote unquote lose, experiment, expand, whatever it is. I'm like, can we leave space for magic? And so we're going to Deer Valley. We had a few options. And then I had a conversation recently with a few entrepreneurs, and I had sparked an idea. So I'm there journaling in the hotel there in San Diego. Girl, this is like 2 days ago. And I'm like, I think this is the thing, but I can't. Because it's like sometimes I'm going to get so passionate. I'm like, I'm going to get you bought in. You're like, what am I buying into? I'm like, don't worry, babe.
I'm like,
don't
here's
worry.
my check. I don't know what we're doing, Jasmine, but I'm there.
So I have to say, like, okay, Jasmine, step back, and you have to make a presentation to the team. What is the cost of this? What has to change? What must be true? How might we be successful? What are our KPIs? How big do we think? How small would it be? And so I am excited. When you're asking like what is up in the pipeline for 2025 is we have a launch in January, your biggest launch ever. We're teaching people how to get sales and how to build digital products. Just like super excited for that. Then we have our mastermind in the beginning of in the middle. We're gonna have a cohort, and then we have the secret project that's coming out that I strongly believe is for. I don't know. I can't say it. There's a project that I'm very excited about, and I'm excited because I want to sharpen my teeth. I want to get back in the ring. I want to experiment, and I want to have another tool in my tool belt. If I can get the team to get behind it, it's going to be a great freaking year.
Well, I'm so glad you're the marketing CEO, because I'm sure you'll get everybody bought in.
I know.
They'll be ready to go. They're like, where are we following you? Off the cliff? Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I'm a vegetarian, now a pescatarian, but I worked at a steakhouse in college, and I was the number one like sales. My sales were always the highest, and I didn't even eat a thing on the menu.
Yeah.
But I had a manager who once told me when I first started training, he says, you got to sell the sizzle, not the steak. Best business advice I've ever heard, because now I'm like, I just got to sell the team the sizzle. The steak, y'all will figure out, but can I sell you on the vision of what this thing could be? So yes, so people who are listening, sell yourself the sizzle. Sell yourself the sizzle, and you will find a way to make the steak.
Will they get the sizzle in their biggest launch ever?
Yeah,
Will they learn
absolutely.
about that?
Absolutely.
Can you talk me through that? Because I think that's what's so interesting about both of our entrepreneurial trajectories, is that those were tipping points. Launching something that we weren't needing to be present for became what allowed us to have financial freedom as entrepreneurs and build our acumen in having other services. What will someone get out of their biggest launch ever? Like what are they going to come out of it understanding and building?
Yeah. So how about this? I also know that under the marketing umbrella, there could be sales. But this podcast, no, we're not doing any sales. The marketing would be, I teach a live class. And we have tens of thousands of people. It's a live class. We do Q&A. I do it in real time because I care about the experience that people are having. So you come to the live class, you're going to learn the exact methodology that we use to create and launch and sell. You get to do that. If you would like to do it inside of the community and have all of our templates, that's going to be something else. But you come to this class, you're going to know exactly what it is we do. I firmly believe that you show everything.
Yeah.
And if people want to do it together and they want extra stuff, great. But that class is going to be a lot of fun. You can follow me on social media at Jasmine Star. You will find all the stuff you need. But even if you don't go to the class, just be in the orbit. Just be in the orbit. Be around other people who believe. Be around other people who try despite the odds not being in their favor. Be around other people who will bet on themselves just a little bit. And that to me would be the greatest gift. Class, no class, offer, no offer. Just be in that. Give yourself the opportunity to believe in 2025 and think things are going to be wildly different for you.
Oh, attitude is everything,
It
and
is.
your self-belief and getting up and doing the hard work, and you do it every
Absolutely.
day. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here,
Kelly.
Jasmine.
Thank
I'm so
you.
excited for my audience to get to know you. And
Thank
if there are
you.
any women, men, humans out there looking to build a business and believe in themselves, the Jasmine Star Show is the way to start.
Thank you, Kelly. And so next time, let's celebrate in Los Cabos.
I'd love to.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at bewellbykelly.com and follow me on Instagram at bewellbykelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.